Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Thank you, Jenna, and thank you, everyone at Emerging Destinations, for giving us this opportunity to share our story here in the Galapagos Islands. I'm Judy Carvajal, the founder of Enchanted Expeditions, and here today is my son, Joshua Angermeyer, who will
Hi,
be, and we will be telling you our story.
hi everyone. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you Emerging Destination for giving us this opportunity, and thank you Jenna. And we'll start with a little bit of family history. On my father's side, through my grandmother, uh, our family, the Kublers, arrived in Galapagos in 1934. My great grandfather Carlos, great grandmother Marga, and my grandmother Carmen. My grandmother was about 7 years old when she arrived in 1934 to Galapagos and spent her entire life in the islands. And on my grandfather's side, Fritz Angermeyer, their story is a little more famous. They, in 1935, five brothers, they left Germany, escaping the Nazi regime. There was a chance that they were going to be enlisted in the army, and they feared that. And off they went to Galapagos. Four of them arrived in Galapagos, and in the long run, three of them stayed in Galapagos and started, uh, built boats to go out fishing, hunted, and this is how they survived. It was very different time then. There wasn't all the privilege we have of today. And but my mom's story is slightly different. She arrived in South America through a different route.
Yeah, my story started 40 years ago in 1977. I had from Canada, recently graduated with my degree in biology, specifically evolutionary biology, and I decided to go back to South America, where I was born in Guyana and grew up in French Guiana. And I wanted to explore the rest of South America and embarked on a backpacking trip that started in the Guyanas, then on to Venezuela, to Colombia, to the jungle in Leticia, then to Peru, and to Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, back to Peru, via Bolivia, then finally into Ecuador, arriving in Galapagos in late July of 1977 with the intention of doing some work with some scientists who were working on the finches. However, back then there was no way of communicating, and I showed up 4 months too late. Found myself alone, so decided, okay, I'll hop on a converted fishing boat and did my first trip around the islands, which was a whole adventure in itself and another story. Anyway, I had planned to return to Canada and found out that the Darwin Station in a national park were giving a naturalist guides course here in Galapagos, since tourism was just in its beginnings and they were looking for naturalist guides and trying to formalize the system. One needed to have a degree in biology or geology and could speak a few languages, and I had both. So I applied, did that, and met my ex-husband, Joshua's dad. And from there, my life in Galapagos and Ecuador began. And raising a family there was actually very different than it is now. My daughter is raising her kids here, and I think it's a privilege for them. But back in the 70s and 80s, it was very different, simple in every way. No communication with the outside world, except for two people here who had ham radios. And that way, I had the opportunity of communicating every couple of weeks with my family. We had electricity from 6 in the morning to 10 at night. Our drinking water was collected from the roof because the water here is brackish. In fact, my first cup of tea here, it was salty, and I couldn't understand why would they put salt in my tea, to find out that that's the only water here, and that's what a lot of people drank. Food wasn't easy. It was very simple. Our food supply, the ship came periodically every few months. And it was carrots and beets or beets and carrots. And what we had is one flight a week from the mainland. So therefore, any medical condition or whatever, you had to get out to the mainland. It wasn't easy. And now today we have 7 flights a day. So really, times were very different. But at the same time, I think it was a privilege to have lived here during that time and have experienced something so different to what it is today. And Joshua will explain what it was like for him growing up here.
Yeah, growing up in Galapagos, obviously very unique, uh, once in a lifetime experience. Um, yeah, when I was younger, I used to spend my time just climbing through the mangroves, fishing off the dock. Uh, life was very different. We ran around barefoot. Used to climb around all the different boats that my parents had. But we used to go out on these boats all over the place and visit all these uninhabited islands that today these are even restricted sites today, and these were areas that my grandparents used to fish or hunt, and as well as my father. And I got to go and experience all these places that today no one even goes to, and spend time in nature surrounded by all these animals that for everyone else are very unique and different. For me, it's all just normal. And even at our front dock, I mean, there was always sea lions, there was always turtles. Remember, just pelicans all over the place. Even, penguins coming into town. I mean, I've seen it all when it comes to the animal side. And I thought all of this was normal until I left the island and realized, no, my upbringing was very different and very unique. And so I feel privileged. I'm glad I had that experience. And all this in the end, goes back to how, our life was on boats, and it is till today. And and all this story of the business all links up to one boat, the Nixie, which my grandfather built as a fishing boat, but eventually noticed that tourists wanted to go around the islands, and scientists as well. And so in the 60s and 70s, my grandparents used to take these tourists around. In those days, it was different. They'd come and spend several weeks at a time because the Galapagos is so far away, and there wasn't those 7 flights a day. And so tourism was very different in those days. And eventually the Nixie went to my parents, and they started taking tourists around.
Yeah, so we started with the Nixie, which it was literally just for 4 passengers. And then came the Pirata and other boats, the Symbol and the Orca, and then the Cachalote. But I just want to mention that in those days, we carried our fresh water with us to drink, but our showers or baths were taken in the ocean. We didn't have all the navigational equipment you have today. We traveled during the day to get from one side to the other. So a trip around the islands, usually on the average, was 2 weeks. And clients came and spent sometimes 3 weeks. And that was the only way to really truly see everywhere. The lovely thing about it, we didn't have air conditioners, we didn't have water makers. So at night, the boat anchored, you opened the portholes. Sure, it was warm. We had little fans, but the breeze and the sound of the sea lions, it was a very, very different experience than it is now. So the Cachalote was the last one. We had sold the others, and the Cachalote continued. We converted it later. And late in the 80s, I decided to move to the mainland of Ecuador. And there began what is known today as the DMC, or the Destination Management Company. Here you will see on the top picture there, that's my first office on the mainland. On the left is the first trade fair I ever attended, the Travel Mart Latin America, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. And here's my first team. So what happens? We were used to running in the Galapagos. I'm now representing not only our boat, but other boats in the Galapagos, all small boats owned by individuals like us. And then decided, okay, I'm going to run trips around mainland Ecuador. So spent a lot of my weekends with the children traveling around Ecuador to get to know the country. I had to know the country, and they would joke about it. They said, there we go again, another 2 days. Let's do a Zoom trip around. I still remember one trip in the jungle with them. We were walking for hours, and then we came to this tea in the jungle, and I said, okay, shall we go the short way or the long way? And the three of them, was the three big ones, they looked at me and said, short way. Anyway, so they got to see quite a bit of Ecuador, dragged around to get to know, to actually start selling Ecuador. And then we also had a whole history of logos, which I'd like to share with you. Here is our first logo. Then we go on, because initially it was Angermeyers and Enchanted Charters. As the years went on, I took that out and shortened it. And as you can see, the symbolism has maintained itself, which is the boats, the green for the jungle, the mountain for the highlands, and the sun for the sun of the equator. So yes, it has changed its look throughout the years, and it's been a lot of fun doing this at times. And just recently, Joshua decided to put his touch on it, and this is what we have, fresh off the press, our new look.
That's our brand new logo. But it's important to mention what has not changed. You know, we're still local, family run, female owned and led, you know, still creating authentic tours. Our passion obviously has not stopped. We're still one of the few local boutique companies, and you know, we're still supporting local and the local communities, the indigenous communities. I mean, these are the people we work with. These are our neighbors. It's important to us to support local as much as possible.
What has changed? Well, we've upgraded our boats. The Cachalote Explorer is a new one. The Beluga gets changed here and there. The Passion is a new addition, and change in terms of service in what the boats provide. The lodge, which is a new experience, a new product for us. Our farm, the fact that we're farming and growing cacao and coffee, and the experiences we provide on land. Our look, the chocolate we're making. We're working with nonprofits, becoming more sustainable as much as possible. We always have been, but now we try to be a lot more.
Now we're gonna just showcase a bit of who we are today, the products that we have. We, as many of you might know, or and if you don't, Galapagos, the best way to see Galapagos is on a live aboard boat. Then you really get to experience all the uninhabited islands. And that is why we own yachts, and we think this is the best way. And we'll showcase them to you now. The Beluga is one of our first class boats, 16 passengers. She's 110 feet long. She's one of the faster boats in Galapagos, so you can get to the destinations quicker, spend less time cruising and more time either on land or snorkeling. And for those that don't know, you will do snorkeling once or twice a day in every trip. These are some of the outdoor spaces, lots of areas to either be in the shade or be in the sun. depending on your preference. And great area in the bow so that you can look for dolphins and whales. And obviously areas to just sit, relax, and enjoy a cocktail. The salon and dining area, all styled in a classic look with the brass and the wood. Another shot of the dining area with its panoramic windows and the bar. And the cabins, mostly with queen and twin beds, all very comfortable. And there are other cabins that have larger panoramic windows that can be split with queen size beds or two twins. And then we get into the Cachalote Explorer, also a first class vessel, what we would consider more our entry level category. Also, she's a bit shorter but a wider boat. She has great social areas. This is one of the best features of the boat is everybody that gets on board just says, wow, like this is wow, so big. So the length of it doesn't tell the true story. And she has lots of deck space, also in the sun or the shade, depending on your preference. This is the stern area where you're just getting ready for your daily activities, either hiking on the islands or getting ready to go for a snorkel. The salon area, lots of nice seating area, comfortable seating, as well as the dining and the bar in the distance, and as well the panoramic windows. And in the cabins, the only reason she's considered the entry level is because some of the cabins have bunk beds, but our guides and our cooks are all the same. And then we get into Passion or luxury class, larger boat, less passengers. She has two suites, and the rest are staterooms, hot tub, lots of great deck space. Probably in the luxury category, probably has the best deck space in Galapagos. All teak decks. And we also have this area called the Sky Lounge, which is one of the favorites for the passengers because you're air conditioned, yet you have the panoramic views of the outside and the bar as well. The salon area, and this is where you would get your daily briefings with your guide. All the boats will have their naturalist guides, and that's how you visit the islands, always with a naturalist guide. And it have two dining areas, inside, outside. And this is an example of one of the suites, the master suite, with king size bed as his and her bathroom. And then you get into the staterooms, slightly smaller. And then our other product is the Enchanted Galapagos Lodge, and my mom will tell you a little bit about it.
Yes, the Enchanted Galapagos Lodge is located in the highlands of Santa Cruz Island. It is on 100 acres of property, most of it farmed. The lodge is a wonderful place as a standalone for those people who do not want to live on a boat while traveling around the islands. You can use this as your base to do day trips. Or another opportunity or another thing we encourage with the lodge is after a cruise or before a cruise to complement your wildlife experience on a yacht to spend a couple days here, get to see what it's like for those of us living in the islands, visit the vibrant little town of Puerto Llora, or take a bike ride, go to a tortoise reserve. There's so much to do, and you get a true sense of what Galapagos is all about by adding a stay at the lodge after or before a cruise. So it's on 100 acres, as I mentioned, 10 spacious rooms, very nicely decorated, walking trails, bicycles, spa service. We have an on-site cheese factory and a chocolate workshop at the farm because we grow our own cacao. Joshua later will tell you about the wonderful chocolate making we make at the farm. And the spaces are very large. This is the reception area, the dining area. The dining is almost, you feel like you're outdoor, wonderful meals. You're sitting in the dining area and seeing the farm and the garden outside. Our talented chef prepares these wonderful local dishes of local products. Great place to celebrate or to just enjoy an evening or sit by the fireplace in the evening. You go, yes, a fireplace. Yes, in Galapagos, it does get cool at certain times of the year. And from here, you can head out to the outside areas, which are very spacious, the pool or the hot tub, or just relax in any one of the areas around the pool, covered decks with hammocks, or even enjoy practicing a bit of yoga or just sitting around and reading. We do host several yoga retreats a year, and this is done in this space. The lodge, a lot of the wood in the rooms and everywhere, all of this wood was harvested from the land. It's wood that we're allowed to harvest. It was introduced, and all the furniture was made by local carpenters. Our artwork is from local artists. The rooms are comfortable with all the amenities you can expect. Several rooms have decks outside to be enjoyed in your hammock or just reading, as you can see here. And Joshua will tell you a bit about the various experiences once you stay at the lodge, while staying at the lodge.
Yeah, we call them experiences or activities that you can do from the lodge, starting with the in-house cheese factory run by my sister and my brother-in-law called Media Luna. They started making cheese in 2020, led by my stepfather, whose family are all Swiss and cheese making family. And you can go up and visit the factory and have a and have them explain, the process of making cheese, and seeing the aging room and seeing a room full of cheese is quite amazing. And then eventually have a cheese platter to enjoy all the European styled cheeses that they make. And I would like to mention that they are award winning. They've won several awards in Latin America for best cheese, artisanal cheese in Latin America. And we also have a cacao plantation where we invite people to uh help in the process of roasting beans and then grinding it and making like an artisanal chocolate, a homemade chocolate. This whole experience really lends to the knowledge of how chocolate is made. They also make a tea with the fruit and add different spices, sort of what the Mayans used to do. So yeah, it's a great experience for those who like chocolate and want to learn a little bit about the process. We also have trails that loop around the lodge, and you get to see the wildlife that exists there, the flora and the fauna. and see some of the different fruits that grow on site that are being used by the chef in your breakfasts. And yeah, you can also walk through the cacao plantation, and then we also have bikes for rent. And you can easily get down to the Galapagos beach and then enjoy the beach there, and you can rent kayaks there as well. Yeah, so the lodge is a great place to do several activities, whether in and around the Highlands or in town. And we are also, as mentioned before, we're a DMC for mainland Ecuador and Galapagos, and my mom will explain a little bit about that.
Yes, as a DMC, we do organize trips to all regions of Ecuador. We have developed very close working relationships with lodges, with the communities, with different operators around. Ecuador is often overlooked by people that don't really realize it's a destination, that the country has so much to offer. Everyone knows Galapagos, but Ecuador is often overlooked. Well, in fact, it's a really small country, one of the smallest in South America, but culturally very rich, very biodiverse, going from the high Andes down through the cloud forest into the rainforest, and naturally very beautiful, with the variety of ecosystems from the Andes to the rainforest. This lends to very different, unique experiences, such as visits to the various cities. Like Quito is the oldest capital in South America. It's 490 years old and has the most extensive colonial center, blending indigenous and European artistic styles with amazing landmarks. The buildings, the churches, the famous Virgin that sits over the city. Other unique attractions are the historic haciendas as you travel around the country, hiking or horseback riding in the Andes, hot springs tucked into the cloud forest, vibrant markets, and talented artisans. A visit to the middle of the world where you stand on both the north and the south and hemisphere, sorry. Traveling along the Avenue of the Volcanoes, there are literally 70 volcanoes on that. And of course, the bird watching. And then one can travel from the high Andes down to the Amazon rainforest, where here it is ecologically impressive, culturally unique, different from the highlands, and definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience. We do work with lodges within the Yasuni National Park or the Cuyabeno Wildlife Reserve. How do you get there? You can get there either overland, which is a great way. You start in the Andes, go through the cloud forest, and end up in a town where you can then take a boat and get to your lodge, a canoe, I should say. Or you can fly. The flight is only 30 minutes. But it's actually a great trip to drive down, see the cross section of the country, and then fly back. So here are some images of what you will see when you're in the jungle. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And I hope you enjoyed our story. Thank you, Jenna, and thank you, Emerging Destinations.
Yes, thank you very much, Jenna, Emerging Destinations, and yeah, back to you, Jenna.